Okay, here we go. We're going to finish lesson 3. And it looks like we only have just 2 more examples here. So example number 4, find the limits of the following composition functions. And so it gives us f of x equals this and g of x equals this. It wants us to find the limit as x approaches 2 of f of g of x. Now remember that this is the same thing as f of the limit as x approaches 2 of g of x. Okay, so when we find this limit, we're going to take f of that function, just like function notation. So our limit as x approaches 2 of g of x is just going to be the limit as x approaches 2 of, here's our g of x, negative 2x. So we're finding f of, and if I wanted to find that limit, I'm just using substitution. I'm putting 2 in for x because this 2 is what we're approaching. So we're going to put it in here using substitution. And so we're actually finding f of negative 4. And so when we find f of negative 4, we're basically just putting negative 4 in. So now this is just substitution again. So these types of problems are just end up being substitution unless you have to do something, unless you have to do something funny to, to get your limit. But I'm just putting in negative 4 into my f of x. So negative 4 to the third minus negative 4 to the second plus 4 times negative 4 minus 1. So negative 4 to the third is going to be negative 64. This is going to be minus 16. This is going to be minus 16 again and minus 1. So 60, 70, 80, 97, negative 97 is what I should have gotten, or what you should have gotten. All right, so now we know that this one's going to be g of the limit as x approaches 2 of f of x. So this is going to be g of, and so we're taking the limit as x approaches 2 of x cubed minus x squared plus 4x minus 1. So to take that limit, we're able to just use substitution. So we're going to put the 2 in for my x in all of these spots. And so this is g of 8 minus 4 plus 8 minus 1. So we're finding g of, this is going to be 16 minus 4 is 12 minus 1 is 11. So g of 11, well now we say, well, our g function is negative 2x. So this is going to be negative 2 times 11. So this is going to be negative 22. For example number 5, we have the limit as x approaches 3 of f of g of x, but this time my f of x and my g of x are graphs. We're still going to be doing f of the limit as x approaches 3 of g of x. So I look over here at g of x, and if I'm approaching 3 from the left, I'm approaching 3 from the right, my y value ends up being 1. So this is actually just f of 1. So I come over here to f, and at 1, my function's value is negative 2. So this answer is negative 2. And then we'll do the same thing here. G of the limit as x approaches negative 1 of f of x. So I'm going to go to f of x. I'm approaching negative 1. So from the left, I'm approaching negative 1. From the right, I'm approaching, it's like you're putting an x value of negative 1 in. And what our y value ends up being is negative 6. So this is actually g of negative 6. So I go over here, and I say negative 5. Uh-oh. Here's a negative 6 way over here, so we have to count. We can see that this is down 1, 2, 3, 4 over 2. So it's really just over 2, or down 2 over 1. So down 2 over 1, that's my negative 5. Down 2 over 1, that's my negative 6. So that would be what my y value would be at negative 6. So if this is negative 3, negative 5, negative 7, this one would be negative 7. And now part C. F of the limit as x approaches 1 of g of x. So f of, now, when I look to see what the limit is as I'm approaching 1, I automatically think does not exist because I'm looking at, from the left, it being negative 1. From the right, I'm seeing negative 3. But when you're doing a composition function, you have to check both of those limits. Okay, so over to the side, you have to look at the limit as x approaches 1 from the left. Okay, we have to solve f of that one. So if I'm coming in from the left, I get negative 1. So f of negative 1, I go over here and I look, my f of negative 1 is negative 6. And then I say, well, what if I have the limit as x approaches 1 from the right of g of x? So I come up here and I say, okay, coming in from the right, I'm going to negative 3. So I need to calculate f of negative 3. So if I go to f of negative 3 and I go down, oh my gosh, that is also negative 6. Since both of these are negative 6, then this becomes negative 6, even though when you first looked at this, it was dne. But you had, when you have a composition function, you can't just say equals dne like you can on the other ones. The composition functions are different. So let's look at this next one. The g of the limit as x approaches negative 3 of f of x. So I go to f of x, I'm approaching negative 3, I get negative 6. G of negative 6. So I go to my g, I go to negative 6, and what did we get there? We got negative 7. So this one is, again, negative 7. And that's it for our lesson.